On this episode, we are headed to a remote meadow in search of some ancient pictographs made sometime between a few hundred and 1,000 years ago. Come along with us on what is sure to be a fun adventure. We're already finding signs of ancient habitation. Check this out. On the ground here, you have several pieces of obsidian. You can see them gleaming in the sunlight. So we're gonna follow this trail out, and hopefully that will lead us to the ancient habitation site. So this area is really Snakeville. It's in the 80s, and I mean, we were driving on the road and saw a fairly fat rattler. Unfortunately, it had been run over, but you know, these grasses are just a great place for them to hide and to hunt. So you got to be really, really careful in a place like this. You got to really watch where you walk. They like to hide in bushes, and so you don't want to step in, around, over, or stick your foot or stick your hands in any kind of bush. Oh, check this out. It's some kind of habitation site or some kind of residence. So we want to make sure that we're respectful of these people's property. It's hard to tell if they've been here or not. My guess is yes. We need to head that way though. We're going to stay off of their property. But you can see this old Nissan 280Z. They have a fresh water tank up there. Cabin looks like it's probably still getting use. So I think we need to head in this direction here. So it looks like the trail is actually over here, so we're going to keep a respectful distance from these people's property. I don't want them coming out with a shotgun or something telling us to get out of here. Question is, how do we get over there? Trail up there. So we're off of the private property there, and we've opted not to hike through the meadow because who knows what kind of critters are living in the grasses there, and who knows how wet it is. So we're up on the hillside here and hiking through the pinyon pine forest, hoping to be able to kind of like make our way to the end of the meadow that we're hoping to get to. Here's our view. So you probably do not need GPS to guide you in a situation like this, but it's nice to be able to refer back to a map to kind of get an idea of, you know, what the terrain is like, but also where you're going. We also like to put on Strava to mark our route, so that way if we need to, you know, retrace our steps, it's really easy to do so. All right, guys, well, it looks like we got to crawl under this fence because this one goes all the way up the hill and we need to go straight. So here we go. Watch out for the barbed wire. Whoop. Oh, yeah, that's sexy. That was real sexy. Whew. Sorry, guys, I know that was not the sexiest fence crossing, but whatever. Look at all this cow pie out here. Definitely, you know, grazing cattle out in the meadow here back in the day. Probably no more. Let's see if we can stay closer to the meadow. Check this out, guys. Old skull of a cow. Whew. Nice place to rest. Right on the edge of the meadow. That's a long shot though. Alright guys, so we're gonna take the edge of the meadow now that we're close to our destination. Try to watch out for any slithering critters and listen for sounds. Sometimes I hear bird sounds and I think they're snake sounds, but I think that's a good thing. I'd rather be aware of the sounds than not aware of them. So close, yet so far. Those are Alice's words. Wow, check out this old chimney here. It's like just keeps getting better and better. Someone probably came out here and watched their cattle grazing on the meadow and sat here in the middle of winter with a fire on, nice and warm. Looks like people have driven out here recently, so that's a good sign. Found some more obsidian. So obsidian is a sure sign that native peoples were out here, because this was their primary rock tool material. There is no obsidian flows in this area within probably 100 miles or so. So that tells you they transported this. I'll check out these ones. Wow. Very cool. So we've got a couple of obstacles here. So we're up on this outcropping. Try to get a view of the best way to get over. As you see here, we've got a bit of an issue with this spring. That would not be crossable for our situation. Another large cow bone. Question is, how do we get out there? Either we go back this way and along there. This is looking really bushy here. Or maybe there's a way to cross right in here, I don't know. Alright guys, we are opting for the meadow route. We had no other choice but to walk through the tall grass because everything else is swamp, trees, and rocks. Water. So that was a lot of bushwhacking, and to be honest, I don't even know if that was the right way to go. But now, as you can see, we're actually on some kind of trail. My guess is this will lead us all the way back, more or less where we came from. So I think we'll probably try to hike out this way. But oof, this has been a very intense mile. Only 1 mile. There's definitely a trail here. Really feels like we're on the trail of the ancient peoples who inhabited this area. I wonder if that's an old Mortero. Somehow got turned to the side. You hear the creek flowing down here. Wow. Gorgeous. So I think the pictographs are somewhere up there on that rock ceiling. I'll have to keep looking around. For a second there, I didn't think we were gonna locate the petroglyphs. We were looking all over this rock face over here and nothing. And the guide that I read said that they were faded, so I figured maybe they weren't even there anymore. But luckily we have a pair of binoculars on us. Had it not been for the binoculars, definitely would not have been able to see these. So it's been quite a journey to get here. Kind of fun, a little treacherous, but it's satisfying to lay your eyes on these very old glyphs, or paintings. So I'm gonna get my other camera out and I'll zoom in and show you guys what they look like. Unfortunately, it wasn't until we were back on the other side of the canyon that we were able to see the pictographs. And if it wasn't for Alice's binoculars, we probably wouldn't have seen them at all. They were so few and far away. Nonetheless, by that time and after the long journey to get there, climbing up the rocks to get a close look at them was not really on our minds, so we settled for a zoomed-in view of the pictographs through the camera from across the canyon. The panel is by no means what most people might call impressive, as there are only about 3 visible glyphs. However, I like to think that the broader experience of venturing out to this meadow that few people rarely visit, and considering why ancient peoples lived here particularly, is ultimately the most interesting inquiry. So it behooves us to wonder about the significance of that rock and what those pictographs might indicate. But as I've oftentimes thought about, going out to these sites, sometimes it's not even about finding the pictographs because they're so indecipherable. Sometimes it's more about the journey to get there, and then the kind of the natural environment themselves. Obviously, people were living there because of the water and the protection of the rocks and the overhangs, but it's also right between the edge of this meadow here and then what seems to drop down into the valley below. So there's a very good chance that that spot there was kind of like a mid-trail camp from lower down in the desert, and that they took this trail to this point and then farther along, higher into the meadows, higher into the mountains during the summer, where there's more water and where the weather would be cooler. So those are my thoughts and speculations for today. We're going to try this trail that we found, take that out, hopefully have an easier time getting back to the car than we had getting here. So if you look on a map, you can actually see the route that the native people would have taken to get to this meadow from lower down the mountain. In fact, in the last episode, I visit a site that is closely connected to this one, as both lie on the same creek system and have similar pictograph styles. Most likely, these were 2 of several camps along a travel route between the low desert and the high mountain meadows. So we're just bushwhacking here through this old cow trail. Helps to wear long sleeves or in pants. This is pretty overgrown, and what I thought was a trail is not. At this point, the last half mile of the hike posed the biggest challenge.
The trail that we thought was a trail disappeared, and so we had to decide whether to retrace our steps and go back the way we came, take the high route out through the trees and burn scar, and potentially encounter impassable vegetation and stream crossings, or cross through the waist-high meadow and deal with the potential snakes, ticks, and direct heat from the sun.
Yeah.
After several minutes of deliberation, we decided on the most direct and perhaps most arduous route through the tall grass. It's also basically when I stopped filming out of a preoccupation for all of the above. Nevertheless, soon enough, we made it across the meadow and were back to the original trail where we started, and even more quickly back to the Jeep, after what was a fun but durable experience. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.